So here at Bike World, we get to ride some seriously cool bikes at cool locations, cool events, cool tracks. But for the SV650, we thought we'd be a bit more realistic, a bit more down to earth, something a bit more gritty. So I come here to Chaplin's famous roadside cafe in Horsham. But before we discuss the bike, first, I need a drink. Can I get a skinny mocha caramel frappuccino with some soya milk?
Thanks so much, stupid.
All right, I'll get a black coffee with a bacon sandwich, please.
No problem.
Thank you very much. Cheers. Suzuki's SV650 has always been a pillar of motorcycling. For the last 17 years, it's been used for so many things, whether it be the first big bike that someone wants to learn to ride on, commuting, for couriers. It's even used in racing for the mini twin class. But I think it's fair to say it's been getting a bit long in the tooth. You've got bikes competing with it like the MT-07, which essentially does the same thing, makes the same amount of power, but is much more modern. So Suzuki's gone back to the drawing board, and this is what we've got. So what has this bike got over the Gladius, which is what this thing is definitely based on as opposed to the old SV650? Well, they've changed the engine for starters. So this thing is still 645cc, it's a V-twin, it's 75 horsepower, which is 5 more horsepower than the Gladius. And they've got that via a new airbox, different injectors, a new exhaust system, and they've coated the pistons with something smart that I don't know anything about. Then they made 80 changes to the chassis to make it narrower, lighter, bit more simple. They've given it an LCD dash and then also a low RPM assist just to help out with new riders so they don't keep stalling it all the time. But what they've done with the SV650 is kept the DNA. They've kept it simple, and what that does is it keeps the price down. So between this and the ER6N and the MT-07, this is still the cheapest. It costs £5,499, and for a bike that sort of does it all, that's a bit of a bargain. I think when you look at the SV, this new one, the styling, the finish on it, it's a bit vanilla, nothing really shouts out to you, so it's hard to get super excited about it. But once you spend a bit of time riding it, well, actually, it's quite a charismatic little thing, and I think the thing that really stands out is that V-twin engine. The MT-07, the ER6, they've got parallel twin engines, they're great, they're grunty, they've got the torque where you want it, but there's just something about a V-twin, and that new airbox on this thing has done wonders, along with the exhaust system. It's such a zingy little engine, you know, for a 650, it feels really pokey, and on top of that, it sounds great. Then there's the handling. This bike is used as a production bike for a racing class, for the mini twin series. So although it's very basic suspension in the sense that the front is non-adjustable, the rear is only adjustable for preload, it's still got the right geometry for when you want to ride quickly. But then at the same time, it's got nice geometry for when you just want to ride in town, which is why it's used alongside the CV500 and bikes like that by dispatch riders or for commuters. Then at the same time, when you want to turn up the wick a bit, do a bit of racing, or just scratch at high speed on the B-road, this thing's perfect. It's a lot firmer than the suspension on the MT-07. That's great fun, it's great for wheelies, it's all soft and it's a bit playful. But actually, when the going really gets kind of going, I'd say you want to be on this. And this is why the SV650 is just so successful. It's for people who don't want to plunge 10, 15, 20, 25 grand plus into a really expensive bike. Some of the things I'm not so keen on with the Suzuki is firstly, the seat. It's really thin, it's really narrow. Secondly, the brakes. It's not so much an issue, more than an annoyance and a bit of a lack of performance, which baffles me because you've got a twin disc setup, 2-piston Tokiko calipers, and for some reason, everything just feels a bit underpowered, a bit wooden. Now, thirdly, it comes down to the styling. When a bike's this cheap, £5,499, in the region of the MT-07 and the ER6, I think it's a nice excuse to go a bit crazy with the styling. It just would have been really nice to see them do something a bit more interesting than that. I think if someone made me decide between an SV650 and an MT-07, I'd still be asking for the keys to the Yamaha. I think at this price range, the Suzuki just takes itself a tiny bit too seriously, and whilst it ticks all the boxes and it does some things better than the MT-07, sometimes you just don't want all the boxes ticked and you want something that actually is going to do something that you can't justify, which is put a smile on your face and be fun. And I think with that, the MT-07 does a much better job. So to find out more about this bike, come down and take a closer look at P&H Motorcycles in Crawley, or head to phmotorcycles.co.uk.